Wagwan story mother freaking time. So I know it has been a hot minute since anyone offered, or excuse me, since I accepted anyone's story to actually tell here on YouTube. And not because I was uninterested, but because I hadn't been as active as I would have liked to be. So I didn't want to tell anyone, yes, I am for sure going to tell your story, and then 2-3 weeks go by and they don't see their story. So here we are finally. Oh, voice just cracked a little bit there. I'm ready to start sharing these stories that people have begun to share with me. I'm opening up the floodgates of stories. So this particular story is from a fellow nurse. And she said she was inspired to tell this story because of some of the spooky experiences I said I had. You know, she said that it was nice to know that she wasn't the only one. Girl, of course not. And I know that we, the two of us, aren't the only two. So let's just go ahead and dive into the story and stick around. I have some pleasant announcements at the very end. Okay. So fast forward. I don't know why I said fast forward. We're just starting the story. So let's not fast forward. Let's call the person that's sharing the story with me. We have to come up with a name because everything has to stay confidential. Macy. I don't think I've ever used the name Macy before. All right. So Macy is a nurse. Macy has been a nurse for probably about 12 years at this point. And Macy said that she is familiar with all of the apps that nurses, CNAs, MAs, phlebotomists, healthcare professionals use to pick up shifts and to make extra money. Real quick education side note. Not sure where my voice is going. There are apps. Some of them are called Medley, CareRev, Clipboard. There's a slew of them. You sign up for the app, you give them all your information, proof that you are the healthcare professional that you say you are, and then you're gonna get notifications to your phone. There's a shift available this day, this time, paying this much. And then if you wanna go, you go. If you don't, you don't. So that's what I mean when I say pick up a shift, okay? So Macy had picked up a shift at this surgery center. So I also don't know if I've ever explained this to you guys in the past, but there's this thing called a 23-hour hold. So after a certain procedure, a lot of times there's spinal procedures. And other times there are major plastic surgery procedures. And then other times there are major augmentation procedures. Those are the three that I'm most familiar with, typically end up being 23-hour holds, where you don't need to be at the hospital, you just need to be monitored in a healthcare setting for 23 hours by a healthcare professional, i.e. a nurse. So she picked up a shift at this surgery center, and it was pretty far, not drastically far, just a little over an hour, but obviously further than the average person wants to drive to go to work. So the thing is with travel nurses will typically have these side gigs or have these registry shifts for when they're not doing contract work. Or they'll do it during a contract for the sake of stacking up that extra money for when they don't really feel like doing a contract. So now that that's all explained, Macy was on her way to this shift that she had picked up. The drive there wasn't necessarily terrible, but there did get a point in this journey where she had to turn down a street, obviously. But this street, the longer you sit on that street, the more you realize that you are driving further and further away from civilization, and you're just you feel like you're just driving. Okay, so it's still a paved road, like it's still a regular road with the 2 yellow lines, okay? She would occasionally pass a car, and nobody was walking on the streets, on the sidewalk. It's fine though, it's supposed to be a night shift, it's the evening time, people are on their way home, or they're already home, they haven't quite gotten off yet, whatever. The point that I'm trying to make is that this street felt more secluded than average. So at one point during this drive down this street, she sees a lady walking, and the lady that was walking just looked average, normal, not strange, not homeless, not tricky, just a woman. She pulls up and she says, "Excuse me, are you familiar with this surgery center titled," I don't know, not titled, excuse me, I'm a writer, and so I'm so used to saying titled. The name of this surgery center is, I don't know, West Hills Surgery Center. I don't know. If that's a real surgery center, that's not the surgery center that I'm talking about. I just picked a random name. So let's say that she said, "Are you familiar with this surgery center, West Hills Surgery Center? I feel like I've been sitting on this road for a long time and I'm nervous that I made a wrong turn and I don't know if my GPS is up to date," yada, yada, yada. So then the lady said, "I'm sorry, what was the name of the surgery center again?" So then Macy's like, "Oh, sugars, maybe I said it wrong." So she turns around to reach for the phone to see if she could, you know, pull it up on the GPS where you have to like scroll to the very, very end where it shows you the name of where you're going sometimes. And then she leans back over, like she's leaning over to pick it up, and then comes back up to show it to the lady that's now a little closer to her driver's side window. And she sees in her rear view mirror that the lady is in the back seat of her car. She didn't hear the door open. She didn't hear the door close. The car didn't move. The lady just transferred from the outside to the inside. So Macy startles, drops her phone, and she's like, oh my God, ma'am, you need to get out my car." And so she's scrambling in a frenzy, reaches for her phone, her hands like passing all over the bottom of the passenger side floor, and she looks up, and the lady's looking at her directly through the rearview mirror, and she was like, "Anything beyond this point is treachery. You need to go home." So then Macy looks down at her phone to call 911. This lady's in the back of my car. Don't know how she got here. She's not thinking spooky stuff at all. She's just thinking, oh, she's about to rob me. She's got some Jedi tricks. That's how she got in the back of my car. But as she looks up from dialing 911, the lady's no longer in the back of her car. So now she's looking around in a frenzy and she sees that the lady is disappearing into the bushes. Now, Macy, I'm gonna be honest with you, homegirl. If that were me, I was turning around. I would have trusted whatever that was, and believed that beyond that point, I would have experienced treachery. Didn't nobody else have to tell me nothing. I didn't have to experience anything else. Nothing else. I'm not interested in anything else. I would have turned around real quick. Real quick. I wouldn't have even called the surgery center. You could have forget it. I would have taken that no call, no show. I'm out. Sayonara. Goodbye. Goodbye, goodbye, goodbye. Yeah, that's how I feel about that. Goodbye. I'm out. So anyways, let's continue this story here. Macy sets her phone down, takes a couple of deep breaths, and she was like, oh my God, what was that? And then proceeds to drive to the surgery center that shows up, appears in sight, maybe about 2 to 3 minutes after continuing this drive down this long, treacherous road. She gets there, takes her stuff out the car, still shaky, and she's like, what am I doing? And it is at that point that she decides, you know what? She flung her bag back into the car and her phone and was like, I'm going home. I'm leaving. And just as she does that, somebody comes downstairs, I guess, and opens up the door and says, oh my God, hi, are you Macy? So glad you made it. Come on in. I guess it's a little surgery center. It's not some big building. A lot of surgery centers in this particular state that Macy was in has surgery centers within the building or medical offices within the building. Y'all know what I'm talking about. There are offices in some buildings. There are a bunch of businesses in these big buildings. But this, where Macy was going, was just one small surgery center. All right. So she walks in. The lady, whom we're going to call the charge nurse, Macy didn't specify, but I'm just going to call this person the charge nurse. We're going to call that charge nurse Jessica. Jessica was like, so glad you made it. You're also going to be working with another registry staff. It is uncommon for there to be a night shift and there are 2 registry people working. At least it's uncommon with me. I feel like a lot of times what they like to have is one staff person there, or at least a registry that is familiar with that place, that picks up there a lot, and then one registry, one brand new. But to have two registry people there, it's kind of like the blind leading the blind. They get further in there. Jessica is giving her a really quick orientation. She introduces her to the other registry nurse, and then at one point the three of them reconvene at the nurse's station. She introduced her to the patient, and so Jessica eventually says, all right guys, I'm so glad you could make it. I hope that orientation helps you make it through the night, you know, make yourself comfortable. I ordered you dinner. Very, very kind, this Jessica. And she says, by the way, if you happen to hear whistling in the middle of the night, please don't be alarmed. Don't be troubled. So Macy was like, I'm sorry, whistling as in the wind, or like whistling as in someone is actively whistling? So Jessica's like, well, it'll sound like it's another person. This is where Jessica made me, I'm sorry, not Jessica, Macy made me so proud. She said, and I quote, that was my turning point, as in I turned around and got in my car and left while Jessica said behind me, where are you going? You can't leave. We don't have another person. I bet you don't. That's why you have two registry people here, because nobody else from the facility is gonna stay. You talking about whistling. Macy just experienced somebody transferring in and out of the car without hearing the actual transfer take place. No, 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 no. I'm out. I'm out. Macy, I'm proud of you. Good for you. Good for you. So, what I will say from that story is that a lot of these healthcare facilities, a lot of surgery centers, unfortunately, at nighttime, they kind of do come alive. Some places a little bit more than others. It's a healthcare facility. You know, these are places where people have passed away, and they passed away without taking care of certain things that kind of keep you in a certain realm that I don't know enough about to talk anymore about. Okay? Healthcare is an interesting place to be for so many reasons. One of these reasons being the reasons within this story that I just shared. Macy, you know who you are. Thank you so much for sharing this story. You're a gem. Glad you made it out of there. Certainly, certainly glad you did. I had some close calls myself. Granny will tell you. Speaking of Granny, I'm uploading another story where my grandmother is concerned. My grandmother is an interesting individual, as you've all learned with my TikTok stories and my IG stories. Anyways, y'all, I hope you guys have had the chance to take a look at Zyla on Spotify, Buzzsprout, and Amazon. It is a story that I am telling in an audible fashion. We have surpassed 10,000 downloads. We are now entering the 13,000 download realm, and that support and that rush and that excitement is making me super happy. Thank you guys so, so much. Make sure you guys check out my literary masterpieces. Click that link below to explore everything that I got going on and to take a look at some of my merch. You guys are wonderful. Don't forget to subscribe, share this story with your friends, talk about it, get me in that search engine, hit the like button. Thanks, guys.